This is Tom Harten. His superpower is middle school environmental engagement. He's based in the Midwest, USA, and his specialty is bats and frogs. I've got a little bit of a bio on Tom. All these bios that we've got from all the speakers, you just do so much. All three of you just do so much. So Tom Harten has been a teacher with the Calvert County Public Schools CHESPAX program since 1992, which we'll hear more about. Prior to this, Tom worked at environmental education centers in Georgia, New York, and Massachusetts. Tom is an avid birder and natural history enthusiast and has been able to apply many of these interests to instructional programs at CHESPAX. In 2017, Tom received the Maryland Geographic Alliance's inaugural James B. Binko Outstanding Geography Educator of the Year. Well done. And Tom has traveled to India through the Fulbright Teachers for Global Classrooms program and to Japan as part of the Japan-US Teachers Exchange Program for Education for Sustainable Development. And in 2009, Tom spent a summer in Alaska's Pribilof Island as a polar trek teacher assisting with research on seabird telemetry. Oh, wow, that's a lot in a very short space of time, as it were. So I'm going to hand you over to Tom. He can talk a little bit more.
Good morning. I'm Tom Harten. I'm a teacher with the CHESPAX Environmental Education Program of the Calvert County Public Schools. And I'm going to give you a presentation today about our student biodiversity projects. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen with you. All right, so again, this is our student biodiversity project. And we've been working with students here at CHESPAX, for 30 some odd years, getting kids to engage with our natural environments here in Southern Maryland. What I'm going to talk to you today, I'll start off talking a bit about what CHESPAX is all about. How we use loggers in our school-based environmental education programming, and then sort of the evolution of our programming using some of the audio recording product, and then kind of where we're going. I'll conclude with what we're trying to work on and how we're expanding some of these things. So Calvert County Public Schools, or CHESPAX, is part of Calvert County Public Schools. We're a school system-based environmental education program. So I work through the Department of Instruction, and we strictly teach environmental programs to students, mainly grades K to 8, with a few high school programs involved as well. And again, we're trying to get kids to learn environmental content, but also to become stewards of our environment and potentially to explore careers in environmental fields. So that's part of what we're all about. We're located on the east coast of the United States in the state of Maryland, right near the Chesapeake Bay. And so Washington, D.C. is up kind of in this left-hand corner, and Calvert County is this little peninsula right down here, kind of wedged between the Chesapeake Bay and the Patuxent River. So CHESPAX is from Chesapeake and Patuxent, or CHESPAX. So we're, again, part of the school system. We really focus on getting kids out in the field and doing hands-on environmental education lessons. We also coordinate closely with local partners, nature centers, parks, museums, and NGOs that are doing environmental work around our county and around our region. And in many cases, they will teach our students. We write the curriculum, but then their staff, the naturalists, the museum educators, will actually teach our kids in some of our programming. And we also develop a lot of special projects. And this, I would say this, the biodiversity work that we're doing kind of falls into that special project category. So typically our programs are curriculum based. I mean, the longevity of the program comes from the fact that this is not an add-on. This is part of the school curriculum. When the kids do these projects, that's how they're getting that particular content, mainly using the next generation science standards and the college and career readiness standards as the framework for our programs. They're also part of the student service learning requirement and environmental literacy requirements, which are a graduation requirement in the state of Maryland. So you actually have to complete 75 hours of service learning during your school career to receive a high school diploma in Maryland. The programs are authentic. We don't just try to make up scenarios. We get kids involved in real world types of activities. And again, they're mainly hands-on, field-based. We do a few school-based programs as well, but we try to get kids outdoors and even off campus as much as possible. And that there's some kind of a compelling storyline. The kids have an understanding for why we're doing this work. You know, there's not that sort of so what moment. They know why are they doing the activities and kind of building towards a larger story. So we found these loggers to be very effective in our school-based programs. We like kids to use authentic scientific tools. We want them to use the same kinds of tools that a scientist might use when possible. They really allow us to extend our research beyond the school day. So we're not limited to that, 9 to 3 time frame. A lot of times when you're recording bird sounds, you want those really early morning hours, or for frogs or for owls and things like that, those late night hours when kids are just not in school. It also helps reduce concerns over safety. We really focused early on with amphibians to do a field trip at night with students in a wetland environment. There are some safety risks, and kind of some risk managers in our system might be a little worried about some of those things. It also reduces some of those impacts on fragile habitats. We've done some years ago, we used to do high school stream surveys, and I would come back to the stream the next day after we'd had a class there, and you could see we were definitely making some impact on the vegetation or on erosion issues around the stream. So this helps to reduce that a little bit, the use of these loggers. It's also not as disruptive to the natural setting, right? If you're, we're out there with kids and you're trying to hear some frogs or some birds calling, even if the kids are relatively quiet, I think just the mere presence of 12 or 25 students are going to impact that sort of natural activity. And it also creates a permanent record. So we can verify this with better minds than ours about whether we're seeing or hearing, rather, different birds or different types of amphibians. So we started with this way back in 2004 and 2005. We ran a program called the Maryland Summer Centers, and these were for gifted and talented students, so really advanced academic learners. And we did a 2-week, intensive course on how scientists monitor amphibian and reptile populations. And it was, again, mainly an enrichment program. We had 25 students for each of those 2 years. And we found it was, really quite successful. The kids would do some field research and then give a presentation to a group of stakeholders, some natural resource personnel, school board folks were invited to the presentation that the kids did. So that kind of whet our appetites for this. We knew that this type of project, here we have myself and a student setting up a real primitive data logger that involved using like Sony Walkman cassette tapes and big gigantic lantern battery, and it worked most of the time, but not all the time. So, but we kind of learned a little bit about it from that. So we realized this was something that we really had tapped into, something that kids were interested in. So a few years later, the state of Maryland started what was called the MARA project, the Maryland Amphibian and Reptile Atlas Project. So this was going to really ramp things up. We were doing this for an entire grade level, roughly 11 to 1,200 students for a much longer period of time. So we built curriculum around this, and our kids got involved in collecting data for this project. So we bought some song meters, like these were the song meter 2s. We put them out on the schoolyards to collect amphibian data at night. The great part of this too was kids used their phones. Kids were, everybody had a cell phone at that point. At least every 7th grader seemed to have one, and they could go into their backyard and had a homework assignment to collect sounds using their phones or collect pictures using their phones. And then they at the end completed some type of an action project. Might have been a habitat improvement project or a public service announcement about why we should do things to protect reptiles and amphibians. The way the study was set up, using USGS quad maps placed over the entire state of Maryland. So here's one of our quads, the Solomon's Island quad, and then those quads were further divided into smaller blocks. So students would learn, the block that they lived in, or the block that their school was, or their backyard was located in, and then we would do surveys using that kind of geographical reference point. So we collected the data that way. I'm going to play a sound sample. Let's make sure it's working. But this was one sample from one of our middle school projects. There we go. So, and it was amazing to me how we had put together some tutorials so the kids would learn, you know, to be able to identify those calls. And we would see students on our field experiences, our 7th grade field trip, which was actually separate from the Mara project. And we saw the kids really learn these calls because we would hear them out in the marsh, right? We'd hear bullfrogs, we would hear green frogs, and the kids were, you know, able to call them out. So it really was gratifying for myself and our staff to see how well the kids had learned these calls. We put together then because we have 6 middle schools, we put together a blog site to kind of bring it all together, just to have a portal where all the data and all the observations could be placed. It's called the Calvert Frog blog. So I'm going to go off the presentation here just for a moment and pull up the blog. So each year we would put together a map showing where each species, so you know, where we found bullfrogs, where we found green frogs, which blocks had spring peepers and so forth. So they had a block summarizing the data, and then, you know, as students would send us images or recordings, these would go on the blog and then could be shared. So it was a way to kind of keep the conversation going between our schools. Okay, so let me close out of the blog. So our curriculum changed. The Mara project ended. We actually extended it for a couple more years beyond the state project, and our local natural resources division was interested in receiving the data. But the curriculum changed as we really folded next generation science into our curriculum. It made sense for us to move it to 8th grade. And we changed it a bit too. It became the broader Maryland Biodiversity Project, which is a statewide effort ongoing to document every frog, every snake, every turtle, every bird, every fern, every different type of mushroom found in the state of Maryland. And then that's documented in a very similar fashion using those USGS quad maps. So our students continued this work using, again, using the loggers, using cameras. We also installed trail cameras at each of our middle school to document mammal activity in our schoolyard. And of course, we got things like white-tailed deer. We were excited to get a coyote at actually 2 of our schools. This was a little bit of a better picture from this past March. We had a coyote that hung around one of our middle schools for about a month or so. Then just this spring, we purchased some of the Song Meter Micro units to start collecting some sound samples from our schoolyard. So I had a brief opportunity during the COVID period to take some kids out, and we field tested these on our schoolyard. So here's some kids kind of setting those up. We captured sounds of a summer tanager and tanagers and other let's just want to make sure we're getting the sound. So hopefully you're picking up that summer tanager call there. But tanagers are a group of songbirds, these forest interior dwellers and neotropical migrants that we are a little bit more concerned about. So it was exciting to be able to capture those and kind of tell that story to our students this past spring. So one of the projects that that sort of was an outgrowth of the biodiversity work that we've been doing was our biodiversity block. And we've had kids collecting different types of biodiversity data for a couple of years now, and felt like we wanted to give them an opportunity to share with others. It provides sort of a forum for them to share about their biodiversity that they found, but also to learn about biodiversity from other parts of the world. So I'd been involved in a couple of teacher exchange programs and was able to talk with some partner teachers in other countries to get them to contribute and their students to contribute some sort of biodiversity stories through our biodiversity blog. And then these teachers send the stories and the photos and the videos to me and the audio recordings to me, and then we'll post them on this blog site. And then we have a mailing list that we, notify folks that we've had an update to the blog. So here's one from just this past March. A teacher, a friend from Pakistan, actually had a brother that was doing some studies in Poland, and he documented some of his observations during that experience. One of the things that we were able to do was we got a grant through the U.S. Department of State, myself and a partner teacher, Sujith, in Kerala, India. And what we did was we purchased some tools. We bought a trail camera, and you can see some of the students setting up this trail camera, and a song meter 4 to document sightings and sounds, and then give them an opportunity to exchange with our students. And I've got a little clip of some of their sounds. I think this is a Malabar whistle. So it's really exciting because what's common in their schoolyard is extremely exotic to us, and they're amazed at the beauty of a cardinal, the kind of things that are real common here. We also had some opportunities to do a little bit of asynchronous communication using the VoiceThread app, where here was an example. One of Sujith's students was presenting about an observation of a lion-tailed macaque that they observed during a field trip to Silent Valley National Park in Kerala. So I think this really has been a great opportunity for our kids to learn, about what's going on in our greater world, right? A chance to see what's going on around the planet, but also to get them to focus, because they are sharing with other people what we have right here in our own backyards here in Calvert County. And these loggers have given us some of the tools that we can use to really capture some great information and some great sound samples and images that we can share with others and get us to really start some exciting conversations with our students. So thank you for taking the time to watch the presentation, and I know we're going to have an opportunity to talk a little bit further about our program, and I'm excited to see what other folks are doing, maybe in a similar vein. So thank you, and thank you, Wildlife Acoustics, for inviting me to present.
Thank you very much, Tom. That was awesome. I love the CHESPAX project and everything that you've kind of been working on, and we've got loads of questions coming in. I mean, it's obviously lots of other people quite like it as well. So if you want, I'll read some questions out and see if you how the best answers go first, I suppose, or best questions go first. Hello, awesome project. When working with children, how do you work around the possibility that some equipment might get lost or damaged?
Yeah, so we, for most of our gear, we are able to lock it up. So we do have locks. The new, the song meter micros, that's just drilled right into a tree. So we just started with that. So we have, so far so good. We've only done that for a couple of sessions, but yeah, we've been fortunate. We also try to place them in areas where they're not real obvious. We'll place them in spots where they're not, because our school, I really don't worry about our students so much. It's actually our schools are often used after hours by other groups, so but we've been fortunate. We've had, I think we lost a microphone once. That was our extent of our loss. We've been knock on wood, pretty fortunate.
Yeah, well, I think I sort of find that with putting things out in a consultancy sort of role in the UK, that generally the majority of things tend to be there when I go back. So you tend to, but you do get paranoid and hide them well. Sounds like.
Yeah. Just a.
So next question, do you work with students of a school? If so, do you do it during school hours, or is it an extracurricular activity? Is it part of the school curriculum, or is it outside the school curriculum?
Yeah, so this for this program is totally within the school curriculum. So our 8th graders have an entire unit on biodiversity. They also do another, so throughout their 8th grade year, they're doing a one on plastics. They do a unit on climate change. And then at the very end of the school year, they have there's a final unit. What can an 8th grader do to help save the earth? So this is again part of their regular curriculum, and they can choose if they wanted to focus on plastics, reducing plastics in the environment. They can choose that. But a lot of students choose, this biodiversity activity where they help. They monitor our data from our trail cams, from our song meters, and things like that, and then they submit it to something called the Maryland Biodiversity Project. So this happens entirely within the school day. Now they might get a homework assignment to go into their backyard and use their phone to record, frog sounds or bird sounds or something like that. But again, it's part of their curriculum.
No, it's funny. We've just I've ran something with a project with the British Ecological Society, and it was kind of very, very similar. It was getting people into recording things, and the first thing we said was go into your backyard and record whatever you can, off your phone. And it's amazing what you can get just by sitting there.
And they love doing it. They love coming in, sharing those sounds. So it's
well, this is I mean, these are like people in their 20s, 30s that are doing this, and it's addictive. So that's the problem.
Right.
It's a good question. Tom, do you have any examples of students who've been inspired to work in conservation, so study environmental science subjects at university, or set up their own projects?
Absolutely. And in fact, we have, again, I mentioned in my talk that we have a lot of partner agencies here in Calvert County that that are our programs are actually run by the naturalists and museum educators, and several of these folks came up through our program. They're Calvert County kids. That our program's been in place for 30 years. So we'll have some of the folks that are teaching our programs now were children coming up through the program as students. Sometimes I'm at professional conferences and I'll run into they'll see my Calvert County name tag, and they'll say, oh, I was a student in Calvert County and came up through the program. So absolutely, we get kids that are inspired by this kind of work, and I think it kind of lights that fire for them, and then they find out what's here. And we're fortunate. I know we have somebody from the Chesapeake Biological Lab on our call today. We have a lot of resources right here in Calvert County for students to take that a step further. We have a biological lab. Morgan State has an estuarine science center here on the Patuxent River. So we have a lot right in our little county.
Excellent. Did you evaluate learning outcomes, sort of skills, interests, motivation, knowledge? If yes, how did you do it?
So as part of our, again, this is part of their curriculum. This is part of their science curriculum. So students are actually tested and they're graded on the content that they're for example, on biodiversity. There are specific questions in their evaluations on, biodiversity related content. So it's actually part of their grade. It's, when they get their report card at the end of the quarter, that information is included in there.
So was the project paused by the pandemic? And if still continue, how is the best way to teach the students virtually? So yeah, did you carry on when a year and a half ago everything closed down?
It was definitely a challenge to do that. We fortunately, right at the end of the school year this year, we did have students come back for the last quarter, or a little more than a quarter of the school year. So we were able to go in and do a few things with a very, very small set of students. The trail cameras were kind of nice for that data is actually digital, so we can we don't even have to go to the school to collect that. The images are actually sent to us via email, and then we can distribute that through our learning portal. So the kids were able to monitor the photos that we were getting from our trail cameras. The files for the songs were a bit harder to distribute, but yeah, we were able to continue. We're looking forward to next year though, and really being able to see the kids face to face again. And
yeah. What have you found to be the best type of information to include in the sound library setups to engage children and to align with the curriculum? So I suppose, yeah, what's the thing what's the hook?
Yeah, I think the real hook was when they're collecting this data, that it is part of something bigger. It's not that they're doing this just for their, their science class, right? They're doing this for the Maryland Biodiversity Project, or when we were with the Amphibian and Reptile Atlas. I think the students were really tuned into the idea that, yeah, we're collecting this not just for ourselves or for our teacher, but other people will be looking at this. Other people will be using this as kind of a record of the presence or absence of some of these different species. So I think that was the real hook, that it was, authentic. It was authentic science. It wasn't just something that, their teacher made up as an exercise, but rather something that was really important.
So, I mean, again, being a host, you can ask you can ask extra questions. So on the basis of that, I take it you're using the good, the bad, and the ugly recordings as well. If you're getting sort of rough recordings, it's windy or rainy and things like that, are you still trying to pull out the sounds from that sort of environment as well?
Yeah, well, I mean, anything that there is submitted, we try to. Now, sometimes we'll get things too. The student will get a lot of times where the students might actually, misidentify something, right? They'll turn in a sound and they think, it's something that's exceedingly rare or whatever. And we'll tell them, hey, we got it and we evaluated it, or we shared it with some expert that gave it a listen. And that sometimes, it takes a little bit of diplomacy to tell them that, hey, what you turned in was not true. But yeah, I think we try anything that they submit, we'll try to use that as part of our data.
Excellent. What did it take to get this program as part of the regular curriculum?
So one of the things that I'm in an unfortunate position where we are part of the school system. We operate through our Department of Instruction. So we do have the ear of our science supervisor who makes those types of decisions. So when we can kind of, conjure up an idea for a project, and if it, we look at the standards, we look at the next generation science standards, kind of drives everything that we do. And then for the folks outside the US, those are our national standards for science, so that most of the school systems in the country have adopted these standards. So we try to find that kind of hook within the curriculum. And fortunately, it is fairly rich in sort of natural history and environmental topics. So we're able to incorporate that way. But I think because we are part of the school system, we are at an advantage as compared to maybe a nature center or a museum. And for folks in those settings, I would say, yeah, if you can make a strong connection with your science supervisor and talk about some of these ideas, become versed in whatever the science standards are for your community, and look for those connections. And I think our system has been fortunate. We've got a kind of a long track record of doing this stuff, so we can we do have a little bit of influence on that.
The questions still coming in. I'll see how many we can get through. Wondering how iNaturalist has improved and or distracted your more local project efforts. So
I wouldn't say it's distracted. That's actually something we really have just started kind of sharing with students and teachers. That Seek app, which is kind of nice, that uses artificial intelligence to identify pictures and things like that. So we're sort of just kind of dipping our toe in the water of those kinds of things. I wouldn't say it's distracted from or taken away from what we do. We're just actually trying to get some folks involved with some of those things too.
Well, there's a question that's linked to that. Great projects. What platform do you use for students to report their observations?
Yeah, so we set up a Google Forms within our learning portal for the school system. So basically, the student would go to a link that we provide the teacher, and then they use Google Forms, and they can attach a recording or a photograph to that, and then include the pertinent information, where that observation was recorded, date, so on, and then that gives us a chance to kind of vet the observation to make sure that it's accurate, and then that's submitted to the Maryland Biodiversity Project that way.
Brilliant. Hi, Tom. Question about the stakeholders that your students presented to. Did you go find people interested in the data that you're collecting, or had you been approached by people who wanted the data beforehand?
So that going back to that summer center program, I guess a few years back. Yeah. So we had, as we were organizing that that center, we had consulted with a number of different natural history folks who could, provide presentations to the students, to provide some expertise for us. And so they were invited to the final presentation that the students have presented. There were some just general community members, local politician type people that we invited, community members with an interest in this. And then, we got a lot of kids' parents would come, and grandma might come, and then also our school personnel. A lot of school folks came too, our Board of Education members, and some of the administrative staff.
Do you find there's an element of pester power the other way as well? Do you find that because the kids are doing things that mum and dad and grandma and everybody else that then start getting interested? Have you got them all in one big sort of hook?
I think so. I think we get a lot of feedback about that. The kids are, with this project in particular, the students are, the parents are wondering, what are you doing in your backyard with a phone for 15 minutes listening to frogs? So they learn a little bit about that too. We do my favorite is we do a second grade program at the landfill where they learn about recycling and natural resource conservation. And then I'll run into parents all the time that'll tell me, yeah, we started recycling more once our student came back from that trip and started, like you say, the pester power, getting them to, they can learn from their kids. They can learn these things from their own students. We also get on our field trips, we'll get parents that will attend as chaperones, and I think a lot of times they become sort of a captive audience for some of this too.
Excellent. There's a couple more questions really, and I think we'll probably have to move on. But have you come across a particular species from the project, like an endangered or really rare? So what's your best find? I think that's
Yeah, I wouldn't say anything particularly rare that that we've found out. Sometimes things that are sort of like things like spadefoot toads, which they're not rare, but they're sort of, it's an event when you hear them. Because they're very sporadic kind of breeders. So when we get those, that's kind of exciting. But nothing that would I think you'd say stop the presses and Yet. Still waiting to get that Bigfoot image with our trail cameras.
Excellent. Well, I think we'll probably have to leave it there. So thank you very much, Tom, for hanging around. If you want to look in the Q&A, there are still more questions coming in. So I don't know if you want to answer any more that are kind of flying in. But we're probably gonna have to move on. But thank you so much for your talk. It's really interesting projects that you're dealing with, and hopefully we'll see you around in the next sort of hour or so if you're hanging around. That'd be good. Excellent.
All right. Thanks for the opportunity.